I have an important message for a select few. That's not all of you. This is for a select few of you guys that are listening or watching this. It's for trade business owners that have been around for a while. They understand the frustrations of marketing and being in control or not being in control. Guys, it's 2021 and many of you are marketing yourselves like it's the year 2000. Off the back of a global pandemic, we've seen huge shifts in the market with people turning to service providers they know, like, and trust. There's never been a better time to establish the tools and frameworks in your business to take advantage of these things. These things that will serve you not only now, but serve the business ongoing. Over at Tradie Web Guys, we've recently launched the Elevation program. It equips businesses with the tools and the programs required to successfully market themselves. It gives you tools to re-engage with your past and present clients whilst nurturing potential clients. It creates assets in your company's name with no proprietary licenses. You own these things 100%. It gives your business a huge head start on the search engines with advanced SEO, and it collates all of the programs and all the services you need into one neat little bundle, including things like web development, website management, email marketing, SEO, Google Ads, loads of different softwares, strategy, support, and a bunch of other things. After going through this program, you'll have all the tools you need to market your business ongoing. You'll have a huge head start in your marketing, and you'll also have a CRM so you can continue to build your database whilst engaging your current customers and re-engaging those customers that you've essentially forgotten about. Marketing tools that you need, and they'll all be in your control. You don't owe anyone anything. You'll be able to dial it up and down essentially as you see fit. So why is this an important time to talk about this? Guys, it's important to know a lot about a little and a little about a lot. Meaning, you want to be in control. You want to know enough to be dangerous. I'm not trying to give you more work here. Essentially, we'll set everything up for you, teach you the basics, and then it's all yours. It's complete transparency. You'll never grow a business past a certain point without marketing. Word of mouth will only ever get you so far. We've spoken about it on the podcast a load of times. At some stage, you need to invest in these things. This is the simplest and most affordable way to do it. For more information, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/elevation, fill in the form, and let's make 2021 the year that you took control. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Bill, welcome to the Site Shed podcast.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Great to be here.
All the way from, are you in San Diego or you're?
I was in San Diego. I live in Seattle now.
Seattle, that's right. Okay, and how's the weather there?
We are finally out of winter. This morning was 30 degrees, but now it's going up to 58 today. So it's turning into a really nice time of year here.
I've been to Seattle twice and it was pretty wet.
Yeah, it's a very rainy city. I was real concerned about that moving from San Diego to here, but I discovered that I must have had my fill of the sun because I actually like the rain.
Yeah, nice.
But the thing is, it rarely rains hard here. It's
right.
Just a little drizzle. Doesn't stop people from doing stuff.
Okay, cool. Well, I have to just firstly apologize and throw a disclaimer out there for you listeners and viewers. I am recovering a little bit from a bit of a cold and so is my wife and daughter. So if you can hear Peter Rabbit playing in the background and the odd giggle, that would be her. But we'll try and get through that. So, Bill, I've invited you on the show today as the first part of a little series we're putting together on building trust and rapport by becoming a great storyteller. So this is an issue that's very close to home for us. As a digital agency, we have hundreds of clients. They all have websites. They're all extremely good at what they do, and they extremely suck at telling their story. And so the reason that I reached out to you was to really shed some light on this
They tend to overcomplicate things so much, and they're just getting their head so much when it comes to actually capturing these stories. And so I'm hoping throughout this little series we can try and dispel some of those myths, build a bit of confidence, and get these guys actually proactively telling their story. We've broken it down to 3 episodes. The first one is going to be why your story matters more than ever. The second one's going to be laying your storytelling foundation and knowing your customers. And then the last one we're going to be the third episode is going to be called Pulling Your Story Together. So, I mean, as I've said this a million times, Bill, you on the show, which you probably haven't heard, but like it or not, today these guys they're in the information business, they're in the education space, and customers are coming to them for information, and it's their responsibility to be providing that information. And it's a bit of a paradigm shift from every single thing they've learned through technical college and building their business, where it's all about just chasing the sale, delivering the work, chasing the sale, delivering the work. Like, people are now really proactively coming to them for information, which may later turn into a sale. And for the better part, they tend to be dropping the ball pretty bad on that. And it's an ongoing battle for me to try and get guys to capture data on projects they've completed, photographs, video, project galleries on their website, or even just like content on their website, things like that, social media content, whatever it might be. I mean, in a magical world full of rainbows and unicorns, I would have all my clients having these beautiful YouTube channels and they're vlogging and they're talking about jobs they're doing. It doesn't happen. They've all got these fabricated fears, which we're going to go into a little bit about, speaking into a phone. But I know this is really your domain. I know you work with lots of different verticals from people all over the world. And so I'm sure there's going to be some little insights there that listeners and viewers can pull from as to what they could be doing proactively in that space. So thank you for joining us. I know you're a busy man, and we appreciate your expertise.
Absolutely. Thrilled to be here.
So I suppose a few things that we're going to try and cover in this series, I'm really looking forward to talking to that whole conversation around email, because I know a lot of guys have this preconception that email is just a tool that you use to, promote discounts and vouchers and promos and all this kind of stuff, but it really isn't. It's really a valuable tool to, for them to be able to communicate story, educate, and nurture. Nurture being a very big keyword there. And we have pretty proactive in that space with a lot of our clients, setting them up with all the tools and everything they need to be doing this kind of thing. But the linchpin is really sort of, them making it a priority, and getting it done, and forming some sort of, in my experience, if it doesn't get entered into like a checklist or some sort of project management as a thing to do on a job, it normally gets relegated in the list of important things right behind going to the pub for lunch. So I'm hoping that we can shed a bit of light on those things as well. But anyway, I mean, do you want to tell us a little bit, Bill, about you, a bit about your background, the company, your company, and maybe a bit of an elevator pitch?
Yeah, sure. It's, my site is called Story Sales Machine. I come from the world of journalism. So I was a journalist for many years, learned how to tell stories there, got into copywriting about 20 years ago, helped various businesses tell their stories. And you're just so right about people dismissing the power of email. And, to look at email as just a way to deliver coupons or appointment confirmations is bad in one way, but it's good for anybody listening, because it means it's so easy to stand out and really make a difference. And it doesn't take a lot of effort. You don't need to be Ernest Hemingway or a master storyteller. It's easier than you think. And believe it or not, the less slick you are, the less polished you are, actually adds authenticity to your story. You should see the videos in my funnel, Matt. It's I just got an email 2 days ago from a woman who told me on the phone that the reason she ordered is because my upsell video, I call it amateur hour, but I just basically told my story on camera, wasn't very polished. I'm really uncomfortable in video. And she just kind of resonated with that. She thought, wow, this guy must be really confident in what he knows, because he doesn't really care about putting all the polish into it. And so when you get an email that tells a story, and it may even have a couple typos, your authenticity is still going to shine through, and you don't have to worry about anything your English composition teacher told you in high school.
Sure.
A lot of people, I think that's where the fear comes in. They get caught up in writing should be a certain way, or I'm capital W writing, when really I like to describe it as it's just talking on paper.
Yeah.
So, when I was in the world of journalism, you had to be very exact. You had to spell things right, and there was a certain structure to things, but it really all comes down to storytelling. And for anybody with a business, you put it well. It's just you want to nurture people, give them information, and you don't need to overthink it.
One of the big things, Bill, that I see literally daily is this whole mentality out there around the churn and burn mentality when it comes to lead generation. So, people come to us all the time as a digital agency. We need more leads. We need more leads. We need more leads. We need Google ads. We want SEO. We want all this blah, 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 whatever it is. But they very rarely have that conversation or come to me with that conversation around how do I re-engage my 10,000 strong database that I've never once made contact with since they pulled their wallet out. And we've run countless campaigns for customers, email nurturing re-engagement campaigns for them. And they've been booked out for months off a single 2-3 email sequence, just reintroducing them, getting their foot back in the door with these customers. Like, it's unbelievable how simple it is to re-engage a database that you've already worked so hard for to build. But there's just this churn and burn mentality around, we need more leads, we need more leads, we need more leads, we need more leads. And don't get me wrong, you do need more leads, but it should never come at the cost of your existing customers.
Yeah. I mean, it's the gold is way more vertical than horizontal. I mean, it's just unbelievable because the vertical can lead to horizontal with referrals and all that. But I don't know why it's just so dismissed. And it's just, I think people take email for granted. I mean, you've probably heard that. I hear it that people have been saying for years that email's dead, and it's never been less dead, and it's never going to go away as long as you need a username and a password and a website and have a bank website where you have to log in. And what I love about email, what attracted me in some respects, is it's a kind of a very intimate thing to open up an email, and it's one-on-one. You don't have 50 million browser tabs open. You can make an email very personal. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. They think, oh, let me put my logo there. Let me put a 25% off coupon there. Let me tell, all my features, instead of really just thinking about there's an actual real flesh and blood living person reading that email one-on-one. Yeah. If you make it just a little bit interesting and authentic, they'll open your emails and you'll get a lot of business out of it.
And I think for the better part as well, the paradigm shift that guys need to really adopt is it's not necessarily this email that we're sending out is not about ramming a sale down our customer's throat. It's about adding value in some way that relates to them, and with the hope that we're building trust and rapport. So when there come times that they may need our services, or they may be speaking to a friend or a family member or a colleague or whatever that may need a similar service that you offer, you're front of mind. And so, that whole recency and frequency conversation around, when was the last time that I heard from you? What was that about? If that last touch point or contact was you trying to ram a sale down their throat, they're probably going to be less inclined to engage you or refer you. But if it's a useful piece of information that you've been able to apply or whatever it might be, you're probably a lot more likely to, you're probably well further along that trust and rapport building relationship phase than, you would be if you're just trying to ram a sale down their throat.
It's all about helping people.
Yeah.
And the less you worry about the sale and the more you just concentrate on helping people, like you said, a friend, it just makes everything so much easier. And there's less of a whiff of desperation there. And people are just much more receptive when they can tell that you're really there to help them.
So, Bill, jumping into, I suppose, the first episode, why your story matters more than ever. My experience, okay, and this is something that I see a lot. And perhaps I'm a little bit, I don't know, maybe I'm not like the typical customer of my client. But well, that said, I am as well, because, we have tradespeople come to our house. We had roofers here yesterday, we had builders here the day before. The guys get caught up in this mentality where they think that what they do is not interesting, largely because they do it every day. And we see this all the time, and it resonates really strongly when we're trying to get information off them regarding or pertaining to a certain product or not a product, but a project that they've completed. And they'll say things to me like, how could I create a piece of content on this? It was just a switchboard installation, or it was just, all we did was change some LED lights, or all we did was revarnish a deck, or all we did was clear a block drain. And they've got these blinkers on, they're not seeing the true potential of that piece of that project and what the story really is behind that. And so I just encourage you guys that are out there, like what you guys do is super, super interesting to people. And sure, nobody's really like fascinated with, the process of clearing a block drain, but people certainly intrigued to hear about stories where, you've prevented sewer from surcharging somebody's home. It's just a different spin on it. Or maybe you were working on a heritage listed building and you had to take certain procedures in order to maintain the integrity of the existing infrastructure and all this kind of stuff. But there's different spins that you can put on content to make it super interesting and to make it relevant. And I think guys are so polarized sometimes with just, with what they do, because they just consider it, it's so run of the mill for them. It's such a daily chore that they just don't find it at all interesting. But people out there are fascinated by it.
I'll give you a great story. This is all the proof you need that you are so spot on. And people can Google this if they want. There's a very famous advertising story in America in, I believe, the 1930s. So Schlitz was a beer company that was mired in, 18th place or something. And a very famous copywriter named Claude Hopkins visited the brewing plants. And the workers were just like what you were saying. They were like, well, why do you want to look at this? It's just boring. This everybody brews beer this way. And he goes, no, tell me about it. This is fascinating to the average person that doesn't know. So Schlitz created an entire advertising campaign on something that all the brewers did, but nobody talked about it. And that was just the simple purification of the beer. So what he did was he described the huge vats that the beer was in. They described how the bottles were automatically washed and how the beer was purified, and just all these little details that the other brewers said, well, why would you want to tell people about that? That's boring. And it took them to number one, because they wrote these long form ads. Just Google it sometime, Schlitz and Claude Hopkins, and it's amazing. And it's just proof that when you're in an industry, you're too close to it and you think everything you do is boring.
Yeah.
If a roofer comes over to my house, I'm kind of fascinated by even just what's on his tool belt, and I can engage him in a conversation. I mean, that's the power of detail. When you see detail, people are just naturally curious, and it's very easy to dismiss the mundane details because you don't realize that people find them actually fascinating.
So Bill, tell me a little bit more about, like, what we're talking about, why it's so important to be telling your story, like that whole relationship building, trust and rapport building side of storytelling. Like, let's talk a little bit about that resonation with customers.
Sure. Well, you can start with the fact that since there's more competition than ever, and it's never been easier to be online, you can't just do the same thing other people are doing. And what other people are doing very rarely is doing any storytelling of any kind. So we'll just start right there. So the barrier of entry has never been lower, but because of that, it's harder to get people's attention. So people's attention spans are shorter, even when they're undistracted. But when you think about all the advertising messages that people are hit with, it really puts more of a premium on the importance of telling a story to get their attention. And you just can't assume that the same direct response tactics and advertising that worked 40 years ago is still going to work today. You look at a company like Netflix and you look at how their entertainment products are just so personal and they're telling stories. And that's why they're kicking Hollywood's ass right now in many ways, because Hollywood still, Hollywood makes great movies too, but when you look at some of the superhero movies and some of their traditional franchises, and then you look at the popularity of some of these Netflix series, which really connects with stories on an emotional level, tells you where the world is going, and you can go in that direction too.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that's like you bang on with, anyone can run a Google ad, anyone can put up a Facebook ad or whatever, but like you said, very few people are going to be willing to build a strategy around communication, build a strategy around, education. And that is like such a huge differentiator between you and your customers, because I can tell you guys out there right now, your customers aren't, your competitors are not doing it. Sorry, I said customers, but your competitors are not doing that sort of thing. So putting a bit of a strategy in place where you are educating and you're building yourself up to be like, you're putting yourself on a bit of a pedestal from an education point of view. Look at the Sideshow podcast, for example, right? Like, we've been doing this for, this is probably going to be up to close to 300 episodes when this goes live, Bill. And, this podcast is about essentially us building trust and rapport with the trades, so people know, like, and trust us. And then if they want to come to us for digital services, they do. And that's always been the way. And it works really well. The guys out there that, like, a lot of our clients and a lot of our colleagues and a lot of our audience, I think, man, you put so much work into this podcast. Like, why do you do this? It's not really worthwhile. Like, how is it worthwhile? But then what they don't see is the ecosystem at play there. And I encourage those guys all of you guys out there, to really start considering these things, because you don't what might seem like a lot of work initially, certainly if it's part of a strategy, can have, pretty beneficial dividends. So content is the same thing. And I don't know if we're going to get getting into this in this episode, probably not, Bill, but I really do want to talk to, at some point in one of these episodes, how easy it is to pull your phone out and actually start capturing content and capturing stories of projects and things like that. Because again, like, guys so have this polarizing fear about speaking into a phone. They can sit there and talk to their customer all day about what a certain service or a certain product or a certain installation or whatever it might be. As soon as you put a camera in front of their face, they want to like clam up and like they have these ridiculous, fears and apprehensions. When the reality is, the only difference is if you fuck it up on your phone, you can delete it,
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So, like, I don't know which one of these episodes we're going to talk, probably perhaps in the next episode when we talk about laying the foundations, for storytelling foundations. But, like these fabricated fears that we build into, and everything we do, it's human. That's what we do as humans. We just build, like, all fears are really fabricated at the end of the day. There's no reason why we should be afraid of a tiny little spider on a wall, it's a fabricated fear. So I'm hoping we can jump into. I'm sure you've had a lot of experience with that over the years, surely.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just such a common fear. And I hate to keep banging on English teachers growing up, but I really think that's a lot of it, is that you're taught there's a certain way to write, and you don't realize that, if you do just whip out your phone and start talking, or imagine you're talking to a customer and somebody eavesdropping on that. They would find that fascinating. Let's say you talk to a customer for 10 minutes about a particular problem. If you did nothing but just transcribe that, and put that in an email somehow and clean it up just a little bit, that'd be a fascinating thing to read.
Exactly. So, I mean, while we're sort of, talking about the importance of storytelling, why it matters so much. So we've already covered off on the fact that essentially people are coming to us for information. They're coming to you because they are interested in what it is you do or service you offer or whatever it might be, right? So can we talk a little bit, Bill, about like the sales cycle and the lifetime, that time scale at which a customer, or a potential customer, I should say, may be coming to you for information relating to a service or a product or whatever, and the time they actually decide to engage you for that service, like that gap in between is such an important time frame at which you should be really invested in educating them, because that's the decision-making process that's happening right there. Like that time frame is really where they're going through the ups and downs of decision-making. They're researching, they're looking at other people, they're getting other quotes, they're doing all this sort of thing. So I'd love to hear your input on, how to invest into that sales cycle.
Yeah, well, the first thing to do is to know whether, let's say you're putting a Google ad out there or you've got a Facebook ad or something, you need to know at what stage of product awareness your prospect is. So let's say if I go to Google and I write and I search on nearest roofer in Seattle, that's me that's showing a lot of buyer intent, but that is showing some intent. So that's the first thing you need to know, is wherever you're getting your leads from, what is their intent and what's their awareness? And that will set the starting point on what kind of information you think you should be feeding them.
So is this kind of the beginning conversation around qualification, like where we go through that whole process of further and further, deeper and deeper qualifying contacts to the point where like they become a qualified lead or a qualified customer or whatever?
Yeah. And I would think that in terms of tradies, I mean, I would think surveying people to put them in various buckets before you email them would be a useful thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah,
because there might be some people they're in a hurry. They're feeling a lot of urgency about the job and they want to get it taken care of right away. There might be other people who, I know when the coronavirus hit, everyone was at home or in quarantine. So they started thinking, okay, what kind of projects do I want to do around the house now? And so they're maybe not so much in a hurry, but they know they want to do some things. So in that sense, they want to find out more. So you just kind of got to be a little more savvy about where people are in that awareness stage, and really put yourself in their shoes and think what sort of information they need to bring them closer to a decision.
And I think for you guys out there, like you've got to have a realistic understanding of what your sales cycle looks like in terms of time frame. And I mean, if you've been operating for long enough, you'll probably have a pretty good idea of this. But I mean, if you look at, say, like a job-based business, so say you're an emergency plumber or an electrician or whatever it might be, or a landscape gardener, you might, be looking for a block drain service straight away, bang, they'll call you, they'll engage you, sort of done. So the storytelling side of that kind of business will then sort of happen very often, not always, but very often after you've done that job. And so, okay, well, how do we keep in contact with this customer so that in 3 months' time, when their drains are blocked up again, we're out there clearing it before it surcharges into their house? Whereas if you're looking at like a project-based business, say you're a builder, or say you're doing like larger based projects that might go on for months, or weeks or months or whatever, like that sales cycle from the time somebody comes to you and the time that they actually pull the trigger and engage you, it could be weeks, it could be 12 months, it could be 24 months. Yeah. So if you're not proactive in keeping in touch with that customer throughout that period of time, then you're next to being forgotten. And so this is where it becomes extremely powerful, because if you guys are proactive in educating that person throughout that time period and being useful, not ramming sales down their throat and not ramming, all these promotions and discount coupons and all this kind of shit down their throat. But if you're being useful and you're speaking to their needs throughout that time period, then like that is such a powerful, powerful resource for you and a massive conversion lifter when it comes to them making a final decision. Because I can 100% guarantee you, your competitors are not doing it.
Yeah. And you don't, and nobody's saying that you have to email these people every day. I mean,
and you should.
And you should, not in this case. There's certain industries where emailing every day is okay, but I would say in this case, for sure, no. But you don't even have to be so I'll give you a great example. I got an email from one of my customers, and he was thrilled because he re-engaged his list for one of his clients, and the client installed countertops, and he came across a countertop that he knew was really unusual looking, that people would have an opinion on. Here's how he re-engaged his list, Matt. He just sent an email, and the subject line was, "Is this counter amazing or ridiculous?" And he knew everybody would have an opinion on it. So he just stuck a picture of this in his email, and he had people vote on it, like just reply back and tell me, is this amazing or ridiculous? And, a tradie could do a similar thing. Like, it's just a way to re-engage. You don't even have to be so educational. You just want to get their attention and be a really interesting, cool person that, oh, wow, Matt's emailing me. I like this guy's emails. I'm going to open them up. Mm-hmm. So when you get out of your head, like, and think, well, I need to sell something and bring them to the next step of the journey. Yeah, some of that's true. But really, all it comes down to is you just want to be in front of them and keep their attention until their timing is right. And if your emails are entertaining and interesting enough, they'll open up enough of them so that you're top of mind when they are ready.
The cool thing about a lot of this, and it's not really a conversation for any of these episodes, to be honest, but there's so much of this stuff that can be automated. And, you can, like, a lot of people think, oh my God, imagine sending a daily or a monthly email. Like I just I'd never have the time to do that. But the funny reality is you can set most of these up as automations that you can write them all in a day, have them all deployed over the course of 12 months, and you never have to look at it again. So, well, within reason.
That's the thing. It's work, but it's work you do once, and that's real helpful.
And so, interestingly, with in that conversation around automation, it can teach you so much about engagement. It can teach you so much about, well, what piece of content, what bit of content, what email that we sent out got a high open rate, what didn't, what got a good click-through rate, what didn't, and then it gives you the ability to go back and test and refine certain parts of that sequence, which is, again, not really a conversation for today, but it certainly puts you in a position of power, because essentially you're collecting data. And if you're collecting data and you're learning about actions and things that are happening, then it puts you in a position where you can optimize and improve.
Absolutely.
So, Bill, in the next episode, we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about laying these storytelling foundations. I know this is going to be important because a lot of guys are probably sitting there watching this going, oh yeah, this is great, but where do we start, kind of thing. So I think this is going to be useful for a lot of guys, because I really want to talk, to this, and I want to talk to, sorry, for the listeners out there, I was just referencing my phone. But I mean, I think more even beyond that, just talking about, how to structure that framework around conversations that we could potentially have with customers, how to address issues, how to address problems, through storytelling and through content, all these kind of things. So, guys, I think in the next episode, we're going to get a lot more granular into some of the applicable parts of storytelling for you guys, so you can, start, I suppose, mapping this out specifically for your business a little bit better. Is there anything you wanted to add here, Bill, in relation to why storytelling matters more than ever?
No, not really, other than just to encourage people just to be open to it and realize that it's easier than you think.
Sure. Okay, cool. Well, guys, this is Bill from storysalesmachine.com. This is the first episode out of the Building Trust and Rapport by Becoming a Great Storyteller series. That was why your story matters more than ever. And in the next episode, we're going to be talking about laying your storytelling foundation. So, Bill, thanks for your time. And listeners, viewers, that is a wrap.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.